Good evening, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Thursday, September the 4th, 2025. In this update, we're keeping an eye on a newly designated tropical disturbance here from the National Hurricane Center, now dubbed Invest 91L. This is likely to track pretty much due west over the next several days, threatening the Leeward Islands in the next 5 to 7 days. So in this update, we'll be breaking down all those details on how strong could this actually get on approach to the Leeward and Greater Antilles over the next 7 days. Now, if you haven't been here before and you do find these tropical weather outlook and discussions very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification icon to get daily tropical weather updates, including live streaming coverage on the tropics. Hit that like button and share this video with their family and friends on social media. So with that being said, here's a look at the deep tropical Atlantic here in the MDR, keeping a very close eye on Invest 91L for this afternoon and evening of Thursday, September 4th, 2025. This is likely to move generally westward and threaten the Leeward Islands over the next 5 to 7 days. Looking at the closer zoomed in view here, showing what 91L actually looks like, because this is still showing signs of better organization this afternoon with what appears to be another burst of very deep convection to the north of the low-level center, which is likely somewhere down in here. And we also have a little bit of a tail, a classic tail here, a classic weak tail here, indicating that the system is trying to show signs of better organization, where it can consolidate and move off and roll off the intertropical convergence zone, which is mainly down here to its south. When we look at this on the 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, we can see that the NHC has this now at a 60% chance of tropical development over the next couple of days, with a 90% chance of tropical development in the next 7 days, giving this a very, very likelihood that we will see our next named storm, which will be Gabrielle on our list of named storms of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. And when we zoom down here and look at what they're saying here, a broad area of low pressure has formed along a tropical wave over the eastern tropical Atlantic. Recent satellite imagery suggests that the system continues to slowly become better organized, with shower and thunderstorm activity along its eastern periphery. Environmental conditions are very favorable. Now, when we scroll down to the bottom of the National Hurricane Center page, you can see with what they have here on that disturbance, a broad area of low pressure has formed along a tropical wave over the eastern tropical Atlantic. Recent satellite imagery suggests that the system continues to slowly become better organized, with shower and thunderstorm activity along its eastern periphery. Environmental conditions are favorable for additional development of this system, and a tropical depression is likely to form by this weekend as it moves slowly westward at about 5 to 10 miles per hour across the eastern, central, and western tropical Atlantic. Interests in the Lesser Antilles, Leeward Islands definitely need to be monitoring the progress of the system as it approaches from the east by the middle of next week. And again, you can see those chances there, a 60% chance over the next couple of days and a 90% chance over the 7-day period. So now let's take a look at our two main global computer deterministic models here, because there is a lot of ifs and buts on whether or not this is actually going to become a significant threat to the Leeward and Greater Antilles over the next 5 to 7 days. So let's first take a look here at the European model, and then we'll be looking at our GFS model, since that is a very aggressive forecast. So let's take a look here right now in the next, say, pretty much this afternoon and evening. That's where our system is actually located. That's 91L, that is. As we go over the next 24 to 36 to 48 hours, it doesn't really consolidate very much, which is why the NHC only gives us a 60% chance of consolidation in the next couple of days. And you can see it right here on the map, a little bit of a vorticity maximum there with some 20 knot winds to the north. But the system does try to get its act together, especially by the time we get into Sunday and into Monday next week, where we do end up seeing a tropical depression, if not a tropical storm here, with winds of about 35 to 40 miles an hour in about 4.5 to 5 days. And this approaches the Lesser Antilles perhaps in the next, say, 6 to 7 days or so. This would be for Wednesday next week by September the 10th, which is deemed the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. Historically speaking, the 10th sees the most activity around the 10th of September, and this is what we have. So we got to really watch this one very closely because this one could develop pretty significantly. And then it falls apart as it moves across most of the greater Antilles, especially over the Dominican Republic, in about 8 to 10 days. And that's because of the graveyard of the Caribbean, historically tearing apart systems due to vertical wind shear and due to a fast storm motion on the Euro. Now, looking at the GFS here, this is a more concerning model, and we'll zoom in much closer to the Lesser and Greater Antilles here in just a second on exactly who could get impacted by this potentially. So hold up there on that. We can see the GFS has a stronger consolidation here initially. That means a whole lot difference going forward. In the next couple of days here, it doesn't really do much, but by day 3, it does try to consolidate a little bit more here, producing winds of about 40 to 50 knots or about tropical storm force. So this would be a pretty strong tropical storm in 3 days, which I really don't think it's going to develop that quickly, but if it does, I would not be surprised. And then look what happens here. By about 4.5 to 5 days out, we have a formidable Category 2 hurricane here on the GFS in about 5 days. And then going forward, approaching some of the islands here of St. Lucia in about 7 days. This would be Thursday, so the GFS has it a day slower than what the European model shows, which means it's able to strengthen a little faster here on the GFS because it's now a deeper vortex. It tends to move a little slowly, and this makes landfall potentially on some of the islands at a formidable hurricane, perhaps a Category 2 strength, which again, I really do not believe it much, but that's why we look at this for the potential outcome. Now let's zoom in closer on exactly which islands could get impacted by this, because now the red area that you saw in the NHC is highlighted over some of these islands. So we now need to break this down a little bit more closely and clearly on which islands could get a near miss to the system. So on the 18Z GFS, we can see that that would be Martinique, St. Lucia-ish. Okay, I did get that correctly after all. So Martinique here gets the eye of the storm in about 7 days, potentially. Again, this is not a set in stone forecast. I want to really make that clear here, but this is the potential outcome that we have seen in our models over the last couple of days, how things have shifted further south, and now the Leeward Islands, the Greater Antilles, could now be getting significantly impacted by a system. All right. So the GFS on its 18Z model shows a formidable hurricane here with winds of about 100 to 110 miles an hour, which is pretty strong. And there's Martinique, there is Dominica right here, here is Guadeloupe, and here is Barbados down here, and here is St. Lucia. So now you know all of your islands where this could be impacting. Now, if we look at our 12Z model, it was a little slower and certainly a little bit to the north, making a direct landfall over Martinique a little past the 7-day forecast. This would be 8 days from happening. This model run is a little faster at showing a landfall in 7 days further south, if that makes sense. All right. Now, I want to be clear for the very last time in this video that this is not exactly what's going to happen 100%. This is not a 100% chance forecast here. This is one individual model that we cannot rely off of 100%, but it gives us a signal and a potential outcome that the islands could be facing over the next 7 to 10 days, if that makes sense. Because if we look at prior model runs, you can see a little slower, a little further north versus other models here, a little further south and a little faster. Now the question really remains is whether or not will Invest 91L become our next named storm or our next big hurricane out there in the deep tropical Atlantic. Well, there's a lot of uncertainty in today's forecast still from most of our model guidance here on our intensity-wise forecast. Looking at 91L You can see over the next 24 hours, it remains below tropical storm intensity. That is a given. And also over the next couple of days remaining underneath tropical storm intensity. But however, though, in about 3 to 5 days, there is a pretty good confidence here on our bundle of intensity estimates that this could become our next tropical storm, which would be Tropical Storm Gabrielle in the next 4 to 5 days. That's what we have here. And then potentially getting stronger than that, perhaps over the next 6 to 7 days. Therefore, because of the low confidence forecast on exactly where and when this consolidates and how far west it's going to go, which means a whole lot to the system's longevity, my intensity forecast is a little bit below most of the intensity consensus here and barely shows this becoming a hurricane in about 7 days. And my intensity forecast calls this to become a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm in about 7 days. So I am below the SHIP model, the LGEM model, and the HCCA model, which explicitly shows a Category 1 hurricane. Now, there's quite a bit of uncertainty in the exact track forecast with 91L because of a number of reasons. First of all, it has not consolidated completely yet, so we do not have a closed surface low producing a lot of deep convection where we have tropical storm force winds where we actually know where the center actually is. And secondly, we don't have aircraft data to prove exactly where it's located. So this is based on estimates from both model guidance and initialization. And so there's going to be a lot of volatility to our track guidance, either going suddenly further south or suddenly going further north. So there is not a 100% guarantee forecast here. So anybody living in Puerto Rico, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, there is a 50-50 shot, as much as if you are in portions there of St. Lucia. If you're on Martinique, if you're on Guadeloupe, there's also a 50-50 shot of you seeing a potential landfall here. All right, so I want to make that very, very explicitly clear in this video that we do not have a 100% home run hit to the forecast saying, oh, it is 100% going to hit Guadeloupe. We don't know that for sure right now because there's a lot of spread here in our spaghetti plots. So now, what is the environmental forecast looking like ahead of 91L over the next 7 days? Well, looking at the SHIPS model, which stands for Statistical Hurricane Intensity Prediction System, say it with me, SHIPS stands for Statistical Hurricane Intensity Prediction System. So this is basically showing us what the environmental forecast looks like and how strong could this actually get based on that environmental forecast. So a couple of things that do check off the board almost immediately here, and I'm going to put a green check next to these, is first of all, the vertical wind shear is generally favorable under about 10 knots over the foreseeable future. We got very warm sea surface temperatures ahead of Invest 91L. However, the dichotomy here about the system is the decreasing amount of vertical moisture in the deep layers of the atmosphere. So you can see here over the next 24 to 48 hours where we have relative humidities around 65 to 70%. Those relative humidities do drop below 60% out to about 3 to 7 days. So there is a little bit of an issue with that as far as whether or not this can take full advantage. Otherwise, with a favorable upper level wind pattern, sea surface temperatures, and upper ocean heat content, that looks very, very volatile for this system. Now, looking at the rest of our ensemble forecasts, both intensity and track forecast here, you can see what the European ensemble is projecting here. Most of the islands here to the north could certainly get a close call here with a tropical storm, if not a low-grade hurricane in the next 7 days, while other ensemble members are bringing this further to the north a little sooner, missing the islands altogether. So there is still a lot of uncertainty exactly how close this is going to get to the Leeward Islands. But anybody in the Leeward Islands, the Lesser and Greater Antilles, need to be watching this system very closely. The GEFS ensemble is all over the place, exactly with what I was saying here. There's still a lot of uncertainty with tracks further to the north a lot sooner versus tracks further to the south a lot later, and that makes all of the difference. Now, looking at the Google AI DeepMind forecast, we can see here, first of all, there is 91L. This is a whole different system that we may have to start talking about in later updates here on the channel. But first of all, there is 91L. You can see most of the models are right where the GFS deterministic model actually is, right smack dab here and across the Central Lesser Antilles. Here's a look at the Google DeepMind generation model, showing us something very similar. But notice most of these tracks here are in the turquoise to dark blue color, indicating a low end and a low-end tropical depression to a low-end tropical storm. Now that we were able to talk about Invest 91L out there in the central and eastern tropical Atlantic, it's a good idea that we start focusing on major hurricane Kiko, as this is a formidable hurricane with winds of 130 miles an hour. You can see here the closer zoomed in view meso floater satellite imagery does indicate a very well-defined clear eye here with some clouds on top of it, but a very symmetrical look here to the hurricane, indicating that it is trying to regain intensity from an earlier eyewall replacement cycle, as you see there. And this is now a threat to the Hawaiian Islands, which is why we do need to talk about this. And you can see here from the National Hurricane Center, let me zoom this out really quickly so you can see. There it is right now as of the 11 o'clock advisory. This is why the video is out a little later, because I wanted to wait for this to come out for you all to see. Winds of 130 miles an hour, moving to the west, even out towards the west-northwest at around 9 miles an hour. And you can see this is going to make a very close, uncomfortably close call with the Big Island and some of the other islands of Hawaii over the next 5 or so days. So this needs to be watched very closely. And you can see here the chances of tropical storm force winds to occur in a reasonable arrival time are anywhere between about 10 to 30% across the Big Island of Hawaii. On the island of Honolulu and Maui are a lot lesser, anywhere between 5 to 10%. And those tropical storm force winds could arrive as early as Monday afternoon on the rest of the Hawaiian Islands. So keep that in mind with this hurricane, that this, let me get my words straight here. If it becomes an annular hurricane, which there is high probability of that occurring, those tend to be resilient against the negative atmospheric effects. And this could be a little stronger than what the NHC is actually showing. So from the Google DeepMind model, you can see where this could be headed, and you can see there are plenty of members here very close or on top of the Hawaiian Islands, and this would be a 5-day forecast. So by the early morning hours of Tuesday here, you can get hit with tropical storm force winds on the Google DeepMind model, and that continues all the way through day 6, approaching some of the other islands here, such as Kauai, as a much weaker system with winds probably about 30 to 40 knots or so. You can see the European ensemble forecast not as bullish as what the Google DeepMind shows, but initially it does show a stronger system. So anyone living in the most of the islands here of Hawaii definitely need to be watching this system very closely. But anyways, if you do enjoy these daily tropical weather updates here on the YouTube channel and you found this very helpful, informative, life-saving, and detailed, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification icon to get daily tropical weather updates, including live streaming coverage on the tropics if necessary. Hit that like button and share this video with your family and friends on social media. As always, have a great rest of your 4th day of September here on Thursday evening, 2025. I'll be back with you more tomorrow afternoon with another update on the tropics.